house. I'm going to be coming from Luke chapter 15, starting at verse 25, and I'll read to the end, which is verse 32. And I'll be reading out of the ESV version. And it says, "Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound.' But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, 'Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.' And he said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" And so in Luke 15, Jesus is responding to the murmuring of the Pharisees and scribes who are offended that he welcomes sinners and eats with them. So he tells them three parables. One, the lost sheep. Secondly, the lost coin. And then thirdly, the lost son, to reveal the heart of God towards the lost. Most of the time, our attention gravitates towards the younger son, the one who ran away, wasted everything, and came back home. But Jesus doesn't end the story with the party. He shifts the spotlight, and now the camera pans outside of the house. There stands the older brother, faithful, consistent, obedient, yet angry, distant, and disconnected. This part of the parable is not just about rebellion in the streets, but it's about resentment in the sanctuary. It's about being close to the Father geographically, but far from him relationally. It's about being in the house, but still lost. My first point is the danger of dutiful distance. The older son is introduced as being in the field, which immediately tells us something about his posture. He is working, he's responsible, and doing what is expected of him. On the surface, he looks like the model son, the one every parent would be proud of. But what's interesting is that while he is physically near the house, he is relationally disconnected from what is happening inside of it. Verse 26 says that he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. That question right there is loaded, because how is it that a son has to ask a servant what the father is doing? That reversal reveals a breakdown in the relationships. You see, servants may know information, but sons should know the heart. The fact that he has to inquire shows that he has been operating around the Father without truly knowing him. Then verse 27 gives the explanation. He says, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." The emphasis is not just on the return of the brother, but on the father's response. It says he has received him. And that word carries the idea of welcome, restoration, and full acceptance. The father didn't just tolerate him, but he embraced him. But the older brother cannot yet rejoice because he does not yet understand the depth of the father's grace. And you know, there are many of us who are still in the field today, serving, working, leading, showing up, but they are disconnected from the joy of the Father. They don't recognize when God is moving because they have reduced their relationship with him to responsibility. They know how to perform, but they don't know how to perceive. And the tragedy here is not that the older brother is working, but the tragedy is that his work has distanced him. His duty has dulled his discernment. And if we're not careful, we can become so committed to doing things for God that we lose connection with God. My second point is the root of resentment. When the older brother hears what is happening, the text says he becomes angry and refuses to go in. This is not just a small irritation, but this is deep-seated resentment. And his refusal to enter the house is symbolic of his refusal to participate in the Father's joy. He is outside, not because he can't come in, but because he won't. And when he finally speaks, he doesn't simply recount what has happened. He begins to reshape the narrative. He says, this son of yours has devoured your property with prostitutes, even though Jesus never gave us that detail. That matters because it shows us that resentment doesn't just react, but it reconstructs. His bitterness leads him to assume the worst, exaggerate the sin, and build a case that justifies his outrage. What started as frustration has now become a full-blown internal narrative that reinforces his sense of righteousness. At the same time, his language exposes a deeper relational fracture. He refused to call the younger son my brother, choosing instead to distance himself by saying, this son of yours. And then when he speaks to the father, he doesn't address him with warmth or honor, but he opens with look, as if he's presenting evidence rather than engaging in a relationship. In just a few words, both relationships are strained. Vertically, his connection with the father is cold and transactional, but horizontally, his connection to his brother is severed. Though he never left the house physically, his heart is just as distant. The one who stayed has become just as lost as the one who strayed. And this is further exposed in his statement. He says, all these years, I've been serving you. That word serving carries the posture of a slave, not a son. He does not see himself as someone who belongs, but he sees himself as someone who has been working to earn. His obedience, while consistent, has been rooted in performance rather than relationship. And here's where it presses into us. How many of us have been faithful externally, but internally we feel overlooked, underappreciated, or entitled? How often do we quietly keep score, comparing what we've done with what others have received? The older brother forces us to confront a hard truth, and that is that resentment often reveals that we've misunderstood grace, not just for others, but for ourselves as well. And then my last point is the response to the faithful but far. The father begins his response not with correction, but with affirmation. He says, son. Before addressing the older brother's attitude, he reestablishes his identity. This is not the language of a master to a servant, but a father speaking to his child. In doing so, he makes it clear that the issue is not a lack of standing, but a lack of understanding. The older brother has been living beneath the reality of who he already is. Then the father makes a profound statement. He says, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. This is not a future promise, but it's a present reality. The older son has never been without access, never been without provision, never been excluded from the father's presence. Everything the father has already been available to him. The tragedy is not that he was denied anything, but that he has lived as though he was. He has been striving for what was already his, working for what was never withheld. And his distance is not due to the father's absence, but to his own failure to embrace what has always been true. And if we're honest, this is where many of us find ourselves. We love God, we serve faithfully, we show up consistently, but we still live like spiritual outsiders. We pray for access when we already have it. We strive for approval when we've already been accepted. We function like servants trying to earn favor instead of sons and daughters resting in relationship. And so the father's words confronts that mindset. He's essentially saying, why are you living like a slave when you are a son? Why are you standing outside the door when the door has never been closed to you? And then finally, the father reframes the entire moment. He says, it was right to celebrate your brother who was dead and is alive again. In that moment, he restores the very relationship the older brother tried to deny. He says, your brother. He shifts the focus from fairness to restoration, from comparison to redemption. He shifts the focus. Heaven's perspective is not centered on what is deserved, but on what is restored. And the invitation is clear. Come inside, sharing the joy, participate in the celebration of life where there was once death. And so I leave you with this question. Are you lost in the house? You didn't leave like the younger son. You didn't run off. You didn't wild out. But somewhere along the way, your heart drifted. You kept showing up, but you stopped connecting. You kept working, but you lost the wonder. You stayed in the house, but you got lost in it. But I came here to tell someone today, the Father is still coming out to meet you. He's not just running after prodigals in the street, but he's reaching for the prideful in the pew. He's calling your name, saying, son, daughter, come on in the house. There's joy in the house. There's love in the house. There's grace in the house. And so don't let your faithfulness turn into frustration. Don't let your service turn into self-righteousness. Don't let your proximity replace your intimacy. Because at the end of the day, this is not about being right, but it's about being reconciled. So come on in the house, lay your pride down, drop your resentment, and step into the joy of the Father. Because the same grace that brought the younger son home is the same grace that can restore you right where you stand. Thank you.